Welcome to Evangelicalish, where we discuss the good, the bad, and the ugly of the American evangelical church, deconstruction, faith, and God's love through it all. Join us for these episodes live on our Evangelicalish YouTube page on Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 o'clock Pacific. Let's journey together. Hello, and welcome to Evangelicalish. There we are. You can see us now. I am April.
I'm Paul.
And I'm Jeremy.
And it is good to have you back, Paul. We definitely missed you last week, but
Missed
you
you
were in
guys
our
too.
thoughts and prayers. And you know, it's always tough when there's death. It's just
Yeah, thank you guys for giving me the night off, and already I've had some people give well wishes in the comments, and so it's just very kind. Thank you. And you just never know what life is like until you have a death in the family, and it just disrupts. That's kind of it just changes everything. So thank you guys for giving me the space, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
What the heck is your husband doing calling us out in the chat there, April? For
who? Let's go. Oh, he was like, hurry up.
Yeah,
you know, I heard footsteps behind me. I think he was coming to be like, are they going to start? It is totally my fault that we were a minute late. I lost track of time. Like TikTok will do that to you sometimes. And so I showed up like 1 minute before air. So fashionably late. Like
that's my usual time to show up. So
yeah.
By the way, how cool is this that we have Dave from Melbourne, Australia joining us?
Oh yeah. Hey Dave.
Oh Dave, that's so awesome. You make us international. We are an international podcast.
Every time I think of the name Dave, I think of the Penguin movie, right? With the penguins of Madagascar or whatever. And the villain octopus, his name is Dave.
Oh,
he's
really?
Like, I'm Dave. Yeah.
I don't remember that, but that's so funny.
No, that is a classic movie, by the way. If you're really wanting one to enjoy while your kids can also enjoy a movie, that's one right there.
Is that the one with I like to move it?
No, that is Madagascar.
What did you say?
Like, so okay, so in Madagascar there's like the penguins who were like spy agents or whatever.
Okay, this is
they made a whole spin-off movie just about the penguins, and it is fantastic. So
gotcha.
Anyway, yeah, you should definitely check it out. You've got kids that are that age range. Paul, you can watch it on your own and just kind of enjoy it.
That's right up Paul's alley.
Yeah, that sounds like his thing. Yeah,
Madagascar
night,
penguins.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, when we were talking about what are we going to talk about tonight, we started talking, realizing we didn't know what to talk about. And then as we were talking, we realized a million things have happened this past week. I mean, I think the biggest news, obviously, are the tornadoes that came through Kentucky and Tennessee and Illinois. And that's just tragic when stuff like that happened. Like just seeing the devastation of everything. I just, our thoughts and prayers, which just sounds so gross when something like that happens. Like it just feels so empty.
Prayers, please.
I know. It feels so empty, but it's like, oh gosh, what do you do? Like what can you do? I don't know. Not to start off really heavy, but
what do we say now? We need. What do we? If we can't say thoughts and prayers, or I'm praying for you, what do we say?
I don't know.
No problem. I have no problem with people saying they're praying for me. Thoughts and prayers seems a little gross, but I have no problem, with that. Or and when I say that, I tell people often. I say, this is just in my tradition, like in the things that I believe. Like please understand, this is just a way that I'm loving you well, right? And that I'm wishing my very best for you. So please take it as kind-hearted, loving sentiments, right? You may believe in the God I'm praying to or not, and that's totally your prerogative. And I am not bashing your worldview, but I'm showing you love from mine. So I have no problem with that. But thoughts and prayers seems real flippant, right? Our thoughts and prayers.
It does feel well, I think that's just so. That's what people do when they don't actually do anything. Yeah. Jen says, we say, I'm so sorry this happened to you. How can I support you in this time? That's good. And then AJ just said pennies and dollars. I do think in this scenario, like actually sending money, if you can find an organization that's actually like giving money to the families that were affected.
Yeah, there's
it's tough to talk about. When do you give time? But Greg Locke's tent did get blown down by the tornado, and is it fair to say that if that had been like a Planned Parenthood clinic, they would say God sent the tornado to tear it down? But
it was
but
judgment.
Can we say that God maybe doesn't like Greg Locke as much as Greg thinks he does? Maybe that's
yeah, I don't know. I think God's love it supersedes our human understanding, and it is. I will say this on your behalf, Paul. It is a really good thing that God is God and I am not, because guys like Greg Locke would have been smitten a long time ago, for sure. But I hesitate to. We talked about this pre-show, right? Because you're 100% right. That is exactly what they would do. They would absolutely, oh, God sent this. This is God's wrath. This is God's judgment. I remember that at the beginning of the pandemic. This is God's judgment on our land for running from Him, and all this other stuff.
I remember Katrina. Pat Robertson said Katrina was because New Orleans was such a godless city.
Yeah. And so I really hesitate to, try to spin a talking point out of some of this stuff. There's a lot of devastation, well past Greg Locke's tent, his circus tent or whatever. There's a lot of devastation. There's a lot of families who, have lost loved ones, have lost property. Some of the pictures I've seen, I have a pastor friend of mine.
Tragic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very tragic. I've got a pastor friend of mine who boarded a plane, and he's actually in Kentucky right now. He going to support families and help on the ground, and
it's tough. And this is why you're a better person than me, Jeremy. But there is a video out there about a church that was blown down, but the Bibles were still intact.
There's a picture.
We're praising God for saving the Bibles when 80 some people are dead. Come on.
The caption said, "Church is the safest place to be." Like literally, the roof is off in this church, and they said because the Bibles weren't moved. So God saved the Bibles, but not the people. They clearly so messed up.
Don't understand how tornadoes work. First off, we'll just start there. Because actually sometimes it's the more heavy things that will get sucked into a tornado versus the lighter stuff. And there's being here in Oklahoma, where we are the tornado capital of the world, probably. We get tons of tornadoes. It's Super Bowl season for our weathermen every spring. There is no rhyme or reason. It hits this house, misses that house. I think we've all, I think that's a famous line from Twister, right? But I think, I think that's really disturbing to be saying things like that when there are people who are dead and families who are hurting and so much devastation.
It's like they don't see it. They're like trying to find the silver lining, the miracle in the disaster, when sometimes there's just not a miracle. Sometimes it just really sucks.
How about the miracle or the silver lining is how communities can rally around each other and show love and compassion for each other. Let that be what it is, right? Yeah. We don't need some, finger of God, active, amazing, the hands and feet of Jesus can be that. We don't need a Bible that, like I saw one picture where it was like, we found this, this Bible that had been blown through a tree, and there was like a tree snapped off and the Bible's laying there, and it was like, build your house on a solid foundation, like it was open to a certain verse or whatever. And I just like that feels really disgusting to me.
Yeah.
Well, and it's I did a TikTok this week, and this is not our topic, but I had somebody close to me have a health incident, and everybody was sending out the "Hey, pray," and thankfully this person has turned the corner and is doing well, and then everybody's like, "God answered our prayer," and I'm a little bit like, why didn't God stop the health incident from happening in the first place? Or how did God
teach a lesson?
This person instead of, it's just, I don't think we realize the trauma that this creates and rethink this. And I do believe in prayer. I believe in connection with one another and carrying burdens, but we're pretty
Yeah.
tone deaf in our language around these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I did not mean for us to go down. I mean, this is a larger topic that we could definitely talk about. I wanted to acknowledge that it happened, just because it's, gosh, I mean, there really are no words. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, it's bad, and you know, I think any kind of, you know, spin that people try to put on this kind of thing is, from either direction or whatever, you know, I just
Mhm.
it feels kind of gross, and I think I think, yeah, I think we just need to realize that there was a major, you know, natural disaster, and there's a lot of folks who God loves a whole bunch. Here's the thing that may feel uncomfortable to say. God loves Greg Locke just as much as he loves everybody on this podcast.
Mhm.
He is just as passionate about Greg Locke as he is me. And whether that feels good, whether we like that, you know, it's
Mhm.
true.
But I don't think Jesus does.
That's why we have you, Paul. You keep us
But
human. You know,
yeah,
the carnal side.
Well, and
Side of your flesh,
your
Paul.
very humane decorum, which you guys are both wonderfully good-hearted people, didn't stop Alex Jones from blaming Joe Biden for the tornadoes.
There was some lady on some Christian show that said it was weather modification. That it was like somehow humans or Satan, I don't know, got into the weather and
humans are
modified it.
Satan.
Got into the weather to modify what God intended for good.
Huh.
It can be modified. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway,
Yeah, okay.
There's no chance that it's climate change, but it's some lizard demon in the sky.
Lizard
Yeah,
demon in the
so
sky.
it's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Okay. So speaking of crazy, I'm glad that we segued here because now we're going to talk about our actual topic. Speaking of crazy conservative, what do you even say? Just cognitive dissonance, just the whatever, right-wing people. We talk about them all the time. It's like a staple of this show. So one thing that has been heavily in the news is Mark Meadows' January 6th insurrection and all of the text messages and documents that he released before he then decided he didn't want to release anything, but they were already out there. So there were all these text messages from Donald Trump Jr., from Laura Ingraham, from Sean Hannity, a bunch of people that have since really downplayed it. Like, this is not an insurrection. This is not this. But now they're saying, or they're not saying now. Here's a few. I wrote some of them down. Like Sean Hannity was begging, like, can he make a statement, ask people to leave the Capitol? And then Don Jr. texted to Mark Meadows, he's got to condemn this shit ASAP. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough. I think Laura Ingraham had said that he's losing his legacy. Yeah, here it goes. Hey, Mark, the president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy.
And that is while Laura Ingraham was on the air on Fox News saying it was Antifa.
Yes. Right. And I saw a clip from Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham because they addressed it on their show, the tweets being read in the briefings. And Sean Hannity, I kid you not, it was so ridiculous, it made me laugh. But he like referenced the tweet and he's like, I have always condemned January 6th. Because just like I condemn all riots. And so for 5 seconds, like for 5 seconds, they showed Beecher just said, "Go April." She just cussed without hesitation. I sure did. It even had it starred in the article, and I said it anyway. So
nice.
I am like, what is that? Is that stage 6 of deconstruction? I don't know.
I think so. Yes.
Yes. So anyway, Sean Hannity for like 5 seconds. They showed images from January 6th, and he's like, just like we condemn all riots, and then immediately cut to footage of Black Lives Matter riots, and then just went on a rant on how terrible those were. Like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever.
And so, unfortunately, his viewers will buy it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. They're saying now they've always condemned it, but they they downplayed it. They blamed Antifa. They said it wasn't a big deal. Like everyone downplayed it after January 6th. But apparently behind the scenes, they were like, this is terrible. Condemn it. And Donald Trump was the only one that was salty and dumb enough to just let it go and not say anything because whatever.
Because that's who he is. Yeah, it was interesting. Mark Meadows, another good Christian serving in government, refusing to testify in front of Congress after he agreed to testify in front of Congress, and showing that this is a crime of the president of the United States. The president of the United States knew the one major job of the president of the United States is to protect the Constitution, protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. And Donald Trump intentionally and willfully did not do it. And the Christian community is behind him for not doing it. Even when he apparently sent a car to pick up Mike Pence during this whole thing to get Pence out of there so they could claim that Pence couldn't perform his duty and somebody else could subvert the election. And Christians like Mark Meadows are cheering Trump on for, this is scary, scary, scary stuff.
Well, it just doesn't seem to be any backbone. I think you said earlier, Paul, who would have thunk that Dick Cheney's daughter and the Mormon are the two sane people in the Republican Party? Maybe left. I mean, there's a few others, but gosh, I have no hope for the Republican Party right now. A party I once loved, that's like swore an allegiance to. They are off their rocker. I don't see like a lot of redemption coming unless they can just say, "Hey, we were wrong," and stop it.
But their belief that America is a Christian nation and that God's plan on earth can only be extant on the earth if America is carrying it forward makes them believe that any means to get there. It's exactly what happened to Caiaphas and the rest of the gang. I'm going to bring Jeremy back in now.
Hello.
They believed, Caiaphas and Saul of Tarsus, they all believed the same. This Messiah was going to come, overthrow Rome, and Israel was going to be made great again. So God would have the country through which his plan could succeed on earth. It's the exact same belief. And when you start doing that, you can start to say, hey, this Jesus guy, maybe we're going to need to kill him because otherwise he's going to ruin our plan to take over the country and install our religion for God.
Yeah, I want to read. Andy made a funny comment. He said Donald Trump needs to sign up for Insurrection X, Jenna Ryan's new workout program. I don't know if you've seen. So Jenna Ryan is the blonde girl who took the private jet to DC for the insurrection, and she's on TikTok saying how she's gonna spend her time in prison doing yoga and that, like trying to do her best, whatever. So I haven't shared this here on this podcast yet, but I actually know Jenna Ryan. She went to my church, like probably 12 years ago at this point. It's been a long time. Just for a few months. It was my dad's church. And she came for a few months, like tried to sell my parents on like some kind of like coaching media thing. And then my parents eventually were like, no, we're going to pass. And she stopped coming to our church. So that is my Jenna Ryan story. It's really weird when you know someone and you see them being plastered on the FBI wanted list and on the news. And yeah. And then my partner, Beecher, knew Zip Tie Guy from the pictures back in the
Zip Tie Guy.
From youth group. And I do think
God.
it's a little profound that we both happen to know someone somewhat well known in the insurrection, and we both knew them from church.
Well, of course you did, because the American Evangelical Church showed up at the insurrection. That's where they were.
Yeah, I mean, they had a cross. They had Jesus Saves flags.
Yes.
With their Trump flags just a little bit higher than the Jesus Saves flags. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I remember
there were
watching
Bibles
it live.
there.
Yeah.
Gallows.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I remember I was fuming mad
Yeah.
I
You know
was
what I mean?
so
Like
mad.
I could just feel myself. Like, it is good I didn't live anywhere near DC. I probably would have done things to get me arrested. Like, I'm serious. Like, that is nonsensical, just stupidity, asinine behavior.
I mean,
Yeah.
I did a video on Kyle Rittenhouse this last week or so, and I'm really scared what I'm hearing from Christians. I mean, I think they are potentially an imminent threat to the country, to democracy, and even to other human beings. Once you start feeling like God justifies your hatred and your any means necessary to the good end of the end times, you become a really dangerous person. And I'm getting really
Mhm.
nervous what I'm hearing coming out of the mouths of evangelical Christians these days.
Well, there's that church that's going around Twitter right now of the guy giving away 2 AR-15s as like a raffle
So
giveaway.
I just uploaded a video about that
Was that the
just a
one
few
that got
minutes
taken
ago,
down?
and they immediately put it under review, and I never said gun.
Did you
I
show the picture though?
did.
I think that must be it because I put up a video one time that showed a shotgun because I was literally me holding a shotgun to show like my old Republican self, and they immediately took it down. So I think that's why. That's
You know
my
what's really funny is the very first, and I think you actually know this, April, because I think this is the first one you ever saw. My first ever video no longer exists on TikTok because I caught a community guidelines violation for, talking about being a liberal pastor who also owns guns. So, and
mm,
I didn't show a firearm. I showed the holster for one, and they took
mm,
it down for a community guidelines violation. But I didn't mention gun. I did mention Kyle Rittenhouse and
mm.
white Christian nationalism. So I wonder if those are some keywords that got flagged for some reason. I haven't heard back on my appeal yet, but I they're giving that away. And my thing is, why in the world are they doing that when they could be doing, and this was the point of my video, like they could be giving away groceries to needy, to families who are in need during the holiday season, or
Right. Right.
diapers to mothers, or I mean there's like 1,000 things they could have done, and this is what they choose to do. Also, I think my favorite line from that video, which may never get seen in the light of day, so this is behind the scenes now, I guess. But my favorite thing is the last thing we need, especially since the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, is white Christian nationalist vigilantes with itchy booger hooks on the bang bang switch.
Oh my gosh.
And talking
Seriously.
about the tone deaf religious right out there, how about the congressman who sends out the Christmas card with his whole family holding killing weapons immediately following the school shooting in Michigan?
Yeah.
Although I guess to his defense, school shootings are becoming so common in the United States anymore. It's hard to avoid getting around that when you want to send out your Christmas card with a bunch of AR-15s in your kids' hands. So
Yeah.
I mean, but it's just this belief that the Constitution floated down from Sinai and is inerrant scripture, and that the Second Amendment is all that is holy and right in the world is just we're so corrupted in our belief system.
Well,
it's crazy.
and think about so put yourself in the shoes of the forefathers. Okay, they write the Second Amendment, right? But in context, they write the Second Amendment while a fast marksman or a fast soldier can fire a weapon 3 times in a minute. That's impressive in 1776. If you can fire your musket 3 times in a minute, you're humming, right? And it's like the most inaccurate. I don't know if you've ever shot replica musket or whatever, but it is the most inaccurate, most ridiculous thing you've ever tried to do in your life. Like, you weren't going to kill very many. You wonder why they marched out into the middle of a field and took knees in front of each other. It's because this is the only way any conflict was going to get solved in 1776. And so, this is when they write the Second Amendment, this is what they have in mind. They're like these ridiculous flintlock muskets and swords. Now we have, weapons that we can, just annihilate things from the sky.
Yeah.
I think that there is, I think the Constitution, and this goes with the Constitution as a whole. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to change with time because things don't always stay the same.
Right.
Like it is not always going to be. Technology changes, industry changes, all of those things. And as things move forward, I think that we as a nation need to adapt with that. It is not good.
Imagine? I mean, there's no way we could make an amendment to the Constitution now. There's no way you could get 2/3 of the states to agree. And my Second Amendment friends are always like, Congress shall pass no law, against any weapon. And I always like to ask them, so should your neighbor be allowed to have a bazooka, a surface-to-air anti-aircraft missile, an atomic weapon? Are you saying there's no line that we can, or can we argue about where the line should be? And a gun that has no value other than killing lots of people in a short amount of time, maybe we shouldn't just be handing those out to everybody that wants one.
My favorite thing that I ever saw was on a Family Guy skit about this, right? And it was like they were sitting around. It was one of the cutaway moments, and they're sitting around in this old timey cabin or whatever, and it's like, all right, Second Amendment. Everyone has the right to bear arms. And it pans over to their fireplace, and above the fireplace is taxidermied literally two bear arms, right? Like off of a bear.
The right to bear arms.
Guy goes, yeah, the right to bear arms, right? and then another guy was like, oh, there's no way that could ever be misconstrued. That's perfect.
Oh my gosh. I just picture I don't know, the Apostle Paul, or even Mary and Joseph, sending out a Christmas card, just holding a bunch of swords.
Swords.
AR-15. It's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Jesus saying, good job, Peter, cutting off that guy's ear in self-defense. You're awesome, man. Way to go.
When he bends over to pick up his ear, just go ahead and cut the rest of his head off.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. This is probably sacrilegious, but I saw this is a little bit off topic. I saw a meme, maybe it was a tweet, I don't remember who it was from, but they were just saying what on earth are y'all thinking? There are crosses everywhere and y'all want Jesus to come back? If Jesus came back and saw these crosses everywhere, you're just going to give him PTSD.
It's no, that's not sacrilegious. Why did we
make that the symbol?
An instrument of death.
Mm-hmm.
Which by the way, I mean, probably, because I too have been to a church service where they told you about how gruesome the crucifixion was in detail, to try to manipulate you.
With the Passion of the Christ, parents taking their 5-year-old.
Yeah, their kids. That? Yeah,
it was violent.
You mean
porn?
What happened on Good Friday?
Good Friday, yeah.
Yeah.
It always reminds me of that SNL skit, Jesus Unchained or whatever.
I don't remember that one.
Okay, yeah, we'll have to. I'll send it to you at some point. But yeah, he's coming back, and this time he's pissed.
Yeah, and so this time it's personal.
Yeah,
I think that was a Mark Driscoll sermon. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And so, but I think it's really fascinating that one of the most, if not the most gruesome forms of capital punishment in the history of mankind, the fact that the Romans just developed something that was just absolutely horrific. But that is what we wear or show, display in our churches, at the top of steeples, right? This is the sign of victory or what. And I'm just like, man,
it should just be like a circle of a tomb,
or
actually I am wearing it now because it's just nothing, like an empty tomb. I'm wearing no necklace. I'm the empty tomb. He is risen. That's what I wear.
He is risen.
By nothing.
I mean, I think it had to be the most brutal way to die because it was so slow and so painful. And then to think that tradition says Peter did it upside down, that had to be
is
the
insane.
worst way to die you could ever imagine.
Oh yeah.
Peter went hard.
Well, and I'm not sure, like, because I know obviously, like, when they, I've heard a lot of like medical scholars or whatever talk about that Jesus died fast, right? Comparatively, like, to the crucifixion process.
They didn't have to break his legs.
And they didn't have to break his legs. Yeah, because that was the whole thing, right? Is that you eventually suffocated, right? You
Yeah, once you broke
asphyxiated.
your legs, you would suffocate because you couldn't lift yourself up to breathe anymore.
Yeah, that sounds real pleasant.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah, so good. But I just, it's just really interesting, the things that the American church has, like, grabbed onto, or just the church through history has grabbed onto.
True.
And
just who, I think Paul mentioned this, you briefly brought up, or maybe Jeremy, you brought up Kyle Rittenhouse, and there's like an upcoming American rally or something.
Oh yeah, Paul sent us that
turning
picture
point
today.
Yeah, and it's they announced that Kyle Rittenhouse is going to be a speaker, and he's in this suit and he's smiling, and it's so gross. Like, they're trying to turn him into some kind of conservative hero.
Yeah.
And he shot at 3 people and killed 2 at the end of the day. And actually, before we move on, we talked about Kyle Rittenhouse a couple weeks ago. I think it was on our cringy evangelical recap, because we were catching up on stuff. Yes, there's the picture. There's going to be an America First.
Oh, you had
it
ready, Fest. Didn't you?
Doesn't he look like a proud boy?
A proud killer. Gosh. Anyway, I wanted to read this comment that we got on our YouTube channel from our show a couple weeks ago when we talked about Kyle Rittenhouse, and we kind of were talking about the justice system. We went more high level with it and didn't talk about maybe Kyle specifically, and kind of were saying, he's just a kid. Like, he's young and stupid. I don't remember all that we said, but I just want to read this comment because if we didn't give it the nuance it deserves, we should. So Stephanie left this comment. She said, I just want to say I love all of your guys' content and follow you all. I wanted to say something about Kyle Rittenhouse and how I think that segue was a little underplayed in the fact, who cares about Kyle, or that he shouldn't go to jail forever for being stupid. He is actually a killer, now turned 18, and was fully aware and premeditated his choice to go there. He should go to jail, prison for all the crimes he committed. And it just saddens me that he gets to be looked at as a kid who made a stupid choice, and Black kids never get that chance. This Rittenhouse trial is very heavy for me, and I know many people in the Black community. Yes, it's expected, but it doesn't mean that it's not scary, that I feel now white people more than ever have free range to just kill us, and nothing will be done about it. Anyway, not a hit on any of you guys, just wanted to state my opinion, and I love the open dialogue of your guys' show. So I just wanted to acknowledge that comment, because I completely agree.
She's 100% right.
Yeah, she's 100% right. And if we didn't give it that nuance, I deeply apologize, because I do think that he should be in jail and he should pay for his
1,000%.
crime.
Yeah. No, I think sometimes we just get wrapped up in, and I think that was the week, obviously, not making excuses for anything.
Yeah.
I think that was the week that we came back, and we've been gone for 3 weeks. So I think we were just spinning with 1,000 things and probably did not cover that adequately. She's right. We didn't cover that adequately. And so, I think we need to be very crystal clear here. And it was something that Jess Eaton actually shared with me.
Mm-hmm.
She and I were having a conversation about how, kind of the difference in, like, how we talk about, or how the media talks about, like, Trayvon Martin versus Kyle Rittenhouse. Like, through that process, it was like, well, Trayvon Martin looked like a man. He looked like he was armed, all this kind of stuff. When he was a kid and a victim who was reaching for Skittles, right? Yeah. Kyle Rittenhouse shows up
with a weapon, a deadly weapon,
an assault rifle,
to a riot,
to a charged event, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, it's already high, high energy, high turmoil, whatever. Shows up there, and I think you had mentioned this earlier, Paul. I mean, he did what he showed up to do. Like, he wanted to have that opportunity, and he created it,
Yeah.
And so, I think absolutely. And people looked at him and said, oh, he was just young and stupid. And, he was a kid at the time. Well, that's not how we talked about Trayvon Martin, who got shot for no reason. Right.
No, they immediately started to villainize him.
Like, yeah. Well, he's had problems. He's got issues in school, his family, here's a kid who got shot for no damn reason.
Yeah.
And we villainize him. And then we look at Kyle Rittenhouse, who was firing off rounds out of an AR-15.
And now he's being paraded around as the hero. Like he has something to say.
And there's video of him wishing he could shoot shoplifters at CVS. Listen, he went hoping deep in his heart that he would get a chance to use his killing weapon to kill somebody. And what really scares me is he's a hero to white Christians, and they can't even see that he's a hero because he's a white kid. And he's not a kid. He was almost 18, by the way. He's now a white adult who went to a BLM event with the intent of at least threatening. And when you have a president who we had at the time calling these protesters thugs and all kinds of other things, this is the environment where Christian nationalist and I'm just average Christian Joe sitting in the white Christian evangelical church now says, that guy's my hero for shooting those BLM thugs. Stupid. That's the environment we created. And I'm trying to tell Christian people, you wouldn't be here vociferously defending this if this was a young black man. I'm telling you, you wouldn't. And they're like, well, yes, if he was defending property. I mean,
oh my gosh. People care about more property than they do human beings, unless those human beings are white, unless they're white. I don't know how we fix this.
Because those people still think some people should be property.
Oh my gosh. Seriously. Ugh. Okay.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I can't. Like it's the white supremacy is so like I see it so obviously now. Like sometimes I just kick myself. Like how did I not see this earlier? Like they're being more open, but not any more open than they were in the 60s and with slavery and anyway.
And the blindness.
Yeah.
There was a comment in the chat that I want to touch on before we move on. Patrick said that the Dante Wright trial, we remember Dante Wright was shot in the front seat of his car because the police officer thought she grabbed her taser, which, convenient. Anyway, trial's been going on for 10 days. Did y'all know that?
I don't see a lot of Christians speaking up about it.
I should know. I feel stupid. I didn't know. I'm gonna go read up on that after the show.
Isn't that crazy? Well, where's all the media coverage? Where's the I
remember the story when it happened.
Oh yeah,
I haven't heard about it since.
The story's outrageous.
Yeah,
it's outrageous. But yeah,
by the way, George Floyd is killed by a police officer's knee, and white people are looking for a reason to blame him for being dead.
Oh my gosh!
And they look for a reason to defend Kyle Rittenhouse. Come on, people.
Like the original analogy that Jess shared, right?
Mm-hmm.
Trayvon Martin was a victim. Like there is no ifs, ands, or buts. He was a victim, and people found reasons to villainize him. A child.
Well, I think we have established that Christians, especially the white conservative ones,
what was the name of the
very backwards
that message, April?
Stephanie Williams.
Yeah, Stephanie, thank you. Thank you for calling us out on that.
So let's go ahead and segue. We also want to do a recap. If you guys have listened to the podcast, The Rise and Fall of Mars Hill, about Mark Driscoll and that church, and we've all listened to it now, and so we want to talk about it and give you our thoughts. So I'm going to do a mid-roll, and we'll be back.
Ooh. Are you loving Evangelicalish? Follow us to catch all the latest content and encouragement. You can check us out on TikTok by following @Evangelicalish or subscribe on YouTube by searching Evangelicalish. That's evangelical with an ISH. And don't forget to catch our live streams each and every single Wednesday night on YouTube at 9 Eastern, 8 Central, and 6 Pacific. And now back to the Evangelicalish podcast.
So yeah, Mars Hill was a church that was born in Seattle with a pastor named Mark Driscoll. Many of you may know about it now in sort of the early to mid 2000s, and had a goal of growing to 50,000 members.
Yeah.
It grew very fast. It grew very fast based upon its ability to get young men to get jobs, get married, have
Yep.
kids, and whatever other nonsense Mark Driscoll said. And then it collapsed very, very quickly. Christianity Today, if you haven't heard it, did, I think, what, a 12-part podcast on it. The last episode just dropped this week. It is painful, brutal. It is a real autopsy of what happened in that church system itself, and a little bit into the Acts 29 church system that it was part of and sort of took over, and a whole lot of other things. But we feel that maybe it missed the point a little bit. And Jeremy, as we were talking about this today, you were saying there's a little bit of danger if we listen to this podcast and come away saying, wow, Mark Driscoll's a terrible, horrible person, and maybe miss a bigger picture of this.
Yeah, and I think actually April, to give credit where it was due, I think she did a good job of bringing this up first. Of just kind
My
of
bad, April. My bad.
Whatever.
Well, I think we were all kind of talking.
We were all
toward the
talking
same
about
point.
it. Yeah.
My thought was I was thankful. Yeah, and so yes, here's a good comment. Right, not a fan of Christianity Today, but they did a good job overall with the podcast. Okay. That was so April share. Well, April, just kind of share with us, kind of what you're sharing.
Well,
earlier.
thank you. Hello, a woman here. You complementarians. I'm just kidding.
What?
I'm just kidding.
I was trying to be.
I know you did great. I'm so sorry. I'm just kidding. It was
right
all
me this time.
I could have been like, oh yeah, Paul, let me tell you about this idea that I got that April gave me.
It was low hanging fruit. No. So what I was just going to say, or what I had said earlier, I'm so sorry. I'm just kidding. It was a joke. Jeremy, love ya.
There's a little truth in every joke, April, but go ahead.
I think my overall issue with the podcast, I think for Christianity Today, is great that they put it out. I think, Jeremy, you made that point that, we can't expect so much because who the source is. But I think my biggest disappointment in the overall podcast was I felt like they put too much emphasis on everything going to Mark Driscoll, most of the blame going to Mark Driscoll. And they blamed other people here and there, but ultimately they were just saying this was a really rotten apple. And, they talked about, and they referenced occasionally that it was a larger issue in other churches, but it seemed like they were insinuating that the issue was narcissists being pastors and not necessarily looking at the theological, deeply rooted, ingrained system that creates Mark Driscoll's and these types of pastors. I really wish they would have kind of dug more into complementarianism. They interviewed a couple complementarianism, and they didn't really say anything negative about complementarianism. That is a very misogynistic theology that they kind of reference Mark Driscoll being extreme at, but they just kind of jumped over that.
That was the issue, right? Is that they talked about the problems with the extremism of complementarianism or the extremism of this celebrity pastor culture, but they never really condemned the establishment as a whole that creates that theology, because let's be frank here, that theology still runs itself in 90% of evangelical churches.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, Christianity Today, and even Mike Cosper, who identifies as a reformed pastor or a reformed person, was a pastor, still writes for the Gospel Coalition, which is a very extreme, reformed, I don't know, website, whatever.
Publishing thing.
Yeah, publishing. Yeah. I hesitate to call them media outlet, but yeah. But yeah, I think I 100% agree with that. You're right. The pushback I did kind of give was I was thankful. Not only did they did they bring this to the surface because they had no reason to have to do it. They didn't have to do it. So whether it was for clicks, whether it was for, downloads, whatever it was for, I think that they did a good job of at least calling it out. I think it's going to allow some people to draw conclusions about their own situations in churches. It's like, whoa, we're not too far from that, or whatever the case is. And then they also gave some decent space for deconstruction. I felt like, especially like in that last episode, and they left in some sound bites about deconstruction that was looking at deconstruction in a positive light, which, as we've heard in the last, couple of weeks, coming from, Matt Chandler, who is or was the head of Acts 29 after Driscoll was removed. He has major issues with deconstruction. He doesn't understand, and he, is just uneducated on it. But so I appreciated that. I appreciated the series as a whole. I think they did a good job kind of dialoguing it. But yes, I agree with you, April. I think what they could have done is condemn the system, but they made it very specific to Driscoll and Mars Hill.
Right. Well, and it's not just complementarianism. And if you don't know what that word is, that is a strong, male headship. The woman is submissive to the husband, obedient to the husband. I don't know if you've seen the little umbrellas that go around Facebook where it's like, this is a biblical family structure. And it's like God's the top umbrella. And then the husband is the umbrella under that. And then it's the woman, the wife, and then children are under the woman. And they have very distinct roles, and they look down on women working outside the home. And and there was one part in particular that was really painful to hear, because I've heard similar things growing up being a woman in evangelical spaces. Like, thankfully my parents weren't this way, but it was a theology that was in the circles that I ran. One of the women that they interviewed that was harmed by Mars Hill and Mark Driscoll, she met with Mark to talk about basically something that he had done wrong to her. And it was her and her husband. And he said in the meeting, would not look her in the eye, and said, I reserve the right to only speak to heads of households. So it was a rift between him and her. And Mark would not look her in the eye and would only speak to her husband. And I don't think Christianity today realizes that, yes, that is a very hurtful thing. I think most complementarianisms complementarianists wouldn't be like that. But that is actually theologically correct according to that belief system. And that is completely dehumanizing to a woman.
Well, I think you're dead on, because I think Christianity today, and you did mention this, Jeremy, that like they took a little bit of risk doing this because they are going to alienate some of their followers or people who could buy their products. But I do think they stopped short of John Piper and Tim Keller and these reform leaders in the church. They're the ones that really platformed Mark Driscoll in a lot of ways. He credits them for mentoring him in the early days. And so we may be sitting here saying Mark Driscoll's an asshole, and he certainly is. And by God, he's pastoring again in Scottsdale, Arizona now, of all things. But John Piper and Tim Keller and these guys who I have some respect for those guys, but they have this same belief system. And we even have a church here in my town of Fresno, a four campus mega church that they totally were birthed out of this reform thing with the big, strong, tough pastor guy, former football player, telling men, be a good husband, take care of your wife, have children, have sex with your husband, all of that same shit. And until we say we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, Mark Driscoll, we're wrestling against the principality of this mindset that is totally aberrant to the culture today and destructive of human beings.
Yeah, the young restless reform movement, and I sadly, shortly after because I went to a conservative college. Grew up in the Southern Baptist Church here in Oklahoma, which is a very conservative and fundamentalist culture. I started on staff at Southern Baptist churches from the time I was 18. I sadly got sucked into that culture for a brief time. Just because and I think this was part of the manipulation too. because they painted it as like this chivalrous style of manhood, right? We're gonna love our wives passionately. We're gonna fight and defend them, and we're not gonna watch porn, and we're gonna be true to our spouse. But the undertones of all of that was misogyny. I mean, it just truly was, and it was control. And I've said time and time again, page 1, sentence 1, on the in the first chapter of the cult handbook is control the women. Like, and so I think it all had that undertone to it. I think that they didn't dunk on James McDonald the way they should have. I think they laid the ball off the glass on having an opportunity to dive into Scottsdale, which I know that, Mike said, hey, look, this has been about Mars Hill and we don't want to talk about Scottsdale. It's been discussed by a lot of other podcasts and creators and writers. But I really feel like that they should have folded that in. Julie Roys, who does the Roys Report podcast, did a 2-part interview with former security, actually the former head of security at Trinity Church in Scottsdale, and one other person. And it is not as bad as Mars Hill. It is worse. It is worse now. Like, he has no accountability, no check. Like, they literally the structure that he was working for, and you saw it kind of like playing out through the the history of the church of like, hey, it started as elder led, and then it was like executive team led, and he was working to get it to where it was a one-man show. That's how he started this church in Scottsdale. So there's literally nobody who can fire Mark Driscoll.
Well, and I think they also failed to mention how prevalent this structure is in evangelical churches. Like, we were at a church for several years. Beecher worked for this church. I led worship for this church. When we started, the pastor had like just taken over from the guy who had been there for 25 years, and they were very board heavy. And then slowly, as we were there over the years, the pastor just started, it just started going to his head. He started getting a little bit more and more control. And eventually he was like, everyone must address me as pastor. I'm now drinking Fiji water. No one else can drink Fiji water. Like, you can't talk to me before services. I am off limits. Like, it was a dial. And listening to, and I didn't even realize it really at the time, but listening to the podcast of Mars Hill, I was like, oh my gosh, that trait was there. That trait was there. Our pastor did that. And like there are little Mars Hills forming all over the country and are already formed. And I think one of the most tragic stories I heard was they had a woman who was abused by her husband. And because she was a woman and he was the head, she could not go for help in the church because they would only talk to her husband. So she was being abused in the church. And then her husband was manipulative, obviously. And then they would go to the elders. And as long as he said he was sorry and would repent, they never called the police. They sent her right back. Like, well, he has a repentant heart. They told her that her wifely duty and godly duty was to stay with her husband. That happens and John Piper, you say you respect John Piper, Paul, a little bit. I do not, because he is on tape encouraging women to, quote, endure the abuse for a season, because that is your godly duty as a woman. If your husband beats you, smile and cook him dinner, because he's doing his best.
And the powerful line from the Mars Hill podcast about that was, the way a woman gets out from under the control of a violent bad man is to put herself under control of a violent good man. And that was sort of the mindset, is you find your John Wayne and submit to him, and then all things will be good. And it's a brutally bad theology built from brutally bad ways. And Abraham Piper, John's son, will tell you that John's not worthy of a lot of respect if you watch his stuff out there right now.
I do love me some Abraham Piper. I feel like whatever wounds I had from John Piper, Abraham's like just putting a little bit of balm on them.
Yeah. All those problems you have from my dad, let me fix those.
And we've talked about, I mean, this is a mindset that's prevalent in Christianity. I've talked about ad nauseum, Mike Pence and the I won't meet with a woman one-on-one. That stuff is all devaluing, dehumanizing, making women second-class citizens. And I think Jesus intentionally broke that down when he sat with the Samaritan woman at the well. That was the violation of everything of him being a rabbi, of him being a Jewish man, to sit with a divorced woman at the well, and a Samaritan no less, shows that it's a ridiculous concept to say, well, I'm so holy, I won't meet with a woman one-on-one.
It's also incredibly sexist. If like every businessman had that rule, women could never get ahead because they could never have meetings. They would, it's just looking at women an object, but wrapping it in some, pretend holy package.
Yeah.
You can't control your eyes there, Mike Pence. That's a you issue.
That's exactly what I was about to say. Listen, if you can't, that's his heart. That's his eyes. And, scripture says, if you can't control that, gouge those eyes out, big dog. Cause, listen, that comes from the over sexualization of women. And the fact that we can't just appreciate, the intelligence and, partnership and beauty of women without sexualizing it. Right. I just, I think we need to come a lot further. All Mike Pence is saying when he says that is, I'm a primate and I have no control. That's all I hear.
And by the way, can two men never be attracted to each other? So maybe you shouldn't meet with a man one-on-one either.
Maybe that's Mike's problem.
Because and Mike said no one's gay. Nobody's actually gay. They get sent off to conversion therapy and become straight. So,
the Christians get rid of this women can't be an authority, can't lead, are a threat to men. It's all bullshit. None of it is from heaven. Let's throw it to hell.
Am I okay? Let me just, I don't know if I'm gonna ask this. I really want to though. Let me ask this question. Okay. Men like that, who are so just so adamant and so fixated on this stuff, right? It can only be one of two things, right? Like they either cannot control their sexual desires or they are gay, right? That's got to be the options, right? Like they are trying to be overly masculine to try to, you know what I'm saying? To try to put on a facade. I do think
there are a lot of people in the closet. I think especially the extreme homophobic Christians who, especially if they're in their 40s, 50s, 60s and are still single, I think there's a good chance they're probably.
Lindsey Graham.
One of the defenses of Kyle Rittenhouse was he killed a pedophile. One of the guys he killed was a pedophile. What is it with Christians and pedophiles? You had the Greg Locke clip calling Biden a pedophile. Why the incredible obsession with pedophilia?
It is a little odd.
It is really odd.
Yeah, it's super weird.
Everyone they don't like is a
pedophile.
Demon or a pedophile.
Yeah,
a Jezebel or a pedophile. That's
Greg Locke.
Projection to me. I'm telling you, just what organization outside of a Christian church organization has had more pedophilia, incidents that they've had to pay for than the Christian church?
We just saw the conviction of Josh Duggar.
Oh my gosh.
That had just happened. Yeah. And that's the thing. They're trying to protect their children from all these, abusers and sexual predators. The sexual predators are in the church.
Yeah. No, if you want to protect your kids, then you should probably not go to church.
Hey, Joseph Yu's here. I just saw his name and I got excited.
I love me some Joseph Yu.
All right, do we want to hit our last segment here?
Yeah. Let's run to a mid-roll and we'll hit the last segment.
I'll tell you what. Let's just go to this our setup video and we'll work.
Oh yeah, we could definitely do that.
How about that? If I can find it real quick. Talk amongst yourselves.
Talking amongst ourselves. Gonna cut this out of the podcast. Gotta edit it. There we go.
Hey man, you know you're a piece of shit, right? You know, right? Right? Come on, yeah, you know.
No.
You know, right? Yeah. Yeah, you know. Take care, folks.
Take care, folks.
This guy.
I don't know if you
Oh.
guys heard that, but he was shooting a selfie with Joel Osteen outside a restaurant, and Joel was like mugging with him, and then he said, "You know, you're a piece of shit, right?"
And then Joel just did his
Yeah,
his
yeah,
little
his
laugh
normal-
and then walked away.
His normal Joel Osteen, giggle.
Was that before or after the news broke that there were money in the walls of Joel Osteen's church?
This was after.
This
It
was
was after.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, which by the way, what a freaking weird thing that is, isn't it? I mean, that's like super insane. There was like 60 grand just hanging out on the wall.
Yeah, I
that what
have
it
some
was?
questions. I've got questions.
Oh, so many questions.
Oh my gosh. Do y'all remember when the hurricane came through and like all of Houston was flooded and they would not open their doors? Maybe it was because they didn't want the misplaced people to find all the money in their walls.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
And the money in the wall, checks and cash, reported stolen, insurance kicked back money on it. They had been reimbursed
It
for
was
it.
$600,000.
Yep.
I thought it was $60,000.
No, it was $600,000
$600,000
that they reported
God
stolen,
almighty.
insurance paid it back, and then they found it in the walls.
In the wall.
Oh, I see. That's
I am
insurance fraud.
very intrigued by
Cool.
what this investigation
Cool.
finds.
Cool.
Cool.
Can we just talk about so this is our hot takes on Joel Osteen, by the way. Can we just talk about that video real quick? It is so cringy. Like I can't. The pride of Houston. Oh yeah, Joe, you're down there with the Reverend Joel Osteen.
Beecher brought up a good point, just tying it in, that it was equal to Mark Driscoll's salary, but actually it was less than
$650,000.
Mark Driscoll's salary was $650,000. That right there is a crime.
Yeah, but all the stuff about not to backtrack, but all the stuff about him, like, plagiarizing.
Oh my god. Yeah, we barely touched the surface of all the things that Mark Driscoll did.
The deal that like he's basically swiping royalties and buying his way onto the bestseller list, and
the church would buy his way onto the New York Times bestseller list.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
The church
Who
would
the
buy
hell
his
do you
book-
think you are?
His
And then
church
there are
would buy his
teams of
books at
people.
retail.
So he is raking in cash on these books, and there are teams of people inside the church working on this stuff for him. Like it is so
insane,
fucked up. Like the whole thing. Sorry,
so
that it was.
insane.
We made it so far.
We're now explicit.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the back to the Joel Osteen video. Okay. How cringy is that video though? Like, I mean, let's be honest. Yes, I am not a fan of Joel Osteen. Let's just call it what it is. Like he is not a likable person. But that just feels gross, doesn't it?
I do say every time I watch it, like I laugh, but then I'm like, oh, I do feel kind of bad because my parents were pastors, and I'm sure there were people that didn't like things that they did, and like I would just feel so bad for them if someone did that to them. They were not Joel Osteen level though. Like to be fair. But yeah, he just kind of walks away. But also I don't feel that bad for him because he's got like millions and millions of dollars. He's got his own like Alexa that's called like iJoel or something that they sell on the shopping network. Have y'all seen that thing? It's like Joel will speak to you every day with inspiring messages. Daily affirmations from Joel Osteen in your own bedroom.
That last comment that you just put up about Driscoll hates Joel Osteen, called him a sissy. I don't think that means he hates Joel Osteen. That actually sounds like a compliment coming from Mark Driscoll because of some of the other things he said about people. So,
oh my gosh, his alias that Mark Driscoll had.
Oh yeah. William Wallace the second. Yeah. Oh, I remember when that came out. Like, I mean, I had people in my church at the time. I was going to a Southern Baptist church. They were all about Mark Driscoll. They loved Vintage Jesus, his book.
Mm.
Oh, they had a men's group that met on Thursday nights, and I wouldn't come, and they were like, "Well, why aren't you coming? Don't you love Jesus? Don't you love your wife? Always trying to manipulate me into showing up." And I was just like, man, this guy feels a little creepy to me. And
That was Joel calling you, Paul.
Yeah, Joel called me
With
right now.
affirmation.
Real quick, I was
Paul just picks up the phone and goes, "You're a piece of shit." Right?
And then he's like on the phone.
Paul just
I
hangs
do want
up.
to say most pastors I know don't have jets or mansions. Most of them drive pretty reasonable to low end cars. Not many pastors I know are getting that wealthy. But what that video, by the way, that guy got fired by the restaurant. He worked at the restaurant where Osteen was eating, and he hijacked him coming out of the restaurant. But what that video makes me think of is like, this is what people in our culture now think of Christianity. Like, you're a Christian pastor, you're a piece of shit. That is us. And that is the reputation that we have. And I think it is a reputation that is well earned. And he got millions of views of that video for going up.
I mean, people are calling that guy a hero online, like that, like doing the Lord's work.
Well, he's definitely more of a hero than Kyle Rittenhouse. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
Oh, 100%. Look, and he got fired. Kyle Rittenhouse is speaking at events. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, we can't bring him up again. I'm going to get mad. We should all.
Driscoll saying, I won't be in submission, or I won't be mentored by anybody that has a church smaller than mine. Like,
yeah.
I mean, these are red flags that we should not be missing.
Oh I mean, that's not just a red flag. Like the fire alarm is going off.
Yeah.
You can't
I
tell
want to
me.
know. He's got like 10,000 followers on TikTok. He's got thousands.
He does.
He
has 10,000 followers.
Probably on Twitter, and then he has people that go to his church. Who are these people that are still listening to Mark Driscoll?
There are 2,000 people at his church, and actually, so in the Roy's report, which was and I'm looking up his.
We were supposed to be talking about Joel Osteen. We went back to Mark Driscoll.
We're listen, it's fine. It's fine. This is fine. We're talking about toxic Christian pastors. 453,000 followers on Twitter for Mark Driscoll.
I hope most of those are just following him to troll him, but I doubt that's the case.
Yeah, I doubt that's the case too. But here's the thing. I feel like there are a lot of people who are just blissfully unaware at that church in Scottsdale. And I know that there were a lot of people who started leaving because of like the podcasts and things that started kind of popping up or whatever. There's still a couple thousand people that go. I mean, they have 3 services a weekend, all this other stuff. But I'm telling you right now, if you thought the rise and fall of Mars Hill was insane, go listen to these 2 episodes on the Roy's report with Julie Roy's and the security guys. It is absolutely, it is knucking futs. Like the whole thing is just absolutely insane. I mean, he started grading people in a staff meeting, started grading staff members and their spouses, and I guess at his church it's staff members and their wives because,
right.
Because Mark Driscoll. But he started grading them on a level of how close they could get to him, right? And so like there was a 1 through 10, and literally they were putting staff names underneath, like if you're a 1, like you get no access to Mark Driscoll. If you're like a 5, like you can be in a room with him kind of thing in a meeting. If you're like at a 7 or an 8, like you could probably walk his dog maybe.
I do feel like there's that probably lives in a lot of churches, but not so like overt as that kind of like unwritten rules. Like, oh, you're just a nursery worker. You don't get to talk to the pastor.
If Matt Chandler wants to know why people are deconstructing, watch that video and note how many people love this guy calling Joel Osteen a piece of shit. And it's not because we're hurt by the church that we're deconstructing. It's because we had questions already. And then when you start to see the fruit of the church being this ugly and this horrible, then those questions, that dissonance is hard to continue. in service to that organization.
Well-
That's what it was for me. After a while, it's like, okay, I get that there's some dissonance here. I get that there probably wasn't a Noah and an ark, you know. Okay, but the fruit of what we do is so good and wonderful. And then when the fruit starts being Donald Trump, though, you can't deny those questions anymore. And so you start to go, okay, you're a piece of shit, and I'm
You're a
out.
piece of shit.
Well,
yeah.
I think the reason why people love it so much is because they not only view Christian pastors as bad, but they view them as predators. Like they are preying on people's money, asking for money, and looking at the luxurious lifestyles that they live. Like, can you imagine the Apostle Paul like rolling up in his private jet, you know, like with his sword?
Listen, the king of shitty pastors is Kenneth Copeland. There is none other worse than
do your K-Cope impression.
Oh yeah.
We should.
Oh my God.
COVID-19.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's like,
Did you see him praying for hair the other day? Like, put your hand on your head.
Gosh.
Hair
yeah.
grow.
Grow. He sounded like Yosemite Sam or whatever to me. Like,
Okay.
darn it, grow.
If you guys want a good chuckle, Kenneth Copeland made 2 Westerns.
Yeah, he did.
Back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And we owned them. And that was one of the movies that we watched as kids. But there is a full trailer. It's one trailer, but it's a double trailer of both of them. I can't remember what it's called. But it's just really comical to watch them back to back. So just look it up on IMDb, because it's on IMDb. You can look up Kenneth Copeland. He acted in his own Western movie, his Church Sold. Oh,
did you ever
so
see
dumb.
that deal for Inside Edition where somebody caught him, like one of the reporters caught him getting off of his private jet, and he's like they confronted him because it was like right after he came out and told Jesse Duplantis about the long tube of demons, you know, or whatever, like flying commercial, like a, you know, plebeian or whatever. And he was like, and she was like, well, do you really think people are demons? And he like, the look on his face,
he like gets right up in the camera and like
and
points
he's
at
like
her. He's
shaking his finger at her. I absolutely never said that, and don't you ever say I did.
That's so
you know,
true.
and he just sat there and shook for a second. He looks like Satan. Like
he does look insane.
However, no, Satan. He does look insane, but he looks like the devil, Lucifer himself.
I don't know what Lucifer looks like. So.
When I imagine the Lord of Darkness, I see Kenneth Copeland.
Oh my gosh.
That's a topper for the show right there.
Yeah.
The Lord of Darkness, Kenneth Copeland.
Have you ever seen them in the room together at the same time? I don't think so.
That's exactly right. It's like me and Batman, baby. You've never seen them in the same room. Yeah.
So if you ever saw Kenneth Copeland, would you go up to him and say, "Hey, Kenneth Copeland, can I get a selfie? You know you're a piece of shit, right? Right? Would you do that with Kenneth Copeland?
What?
Would Kenneth Copeland deserve it?
More people now, doesn't it?
You know what? Touche. Yes, I would do that. Kenneth Copeland has it coming though. I mean, Joel Osteen probably did too, but like, I mean, Joel Osteen, as gross as he is, like his positivity, like the guy is just like, oh shucks, y'all.
He never does not have. I don't think I've ever seen him without like a full teeth smile.
Like
when his eyes are squinty. He's just like, well, God's playing for your life. I just believe that God's gonna give you that break. That break is coming.
I'll take Joel Osteen over John MacArthur any day of the week. I gotta be honest with you, and I guess maybe this is my little pastor's heart now. You know, we have Joseph Wu with us here today. Jeremy's here. There are a lot of pastors that are doing a lot of good for a lot of people for very little money, and so I just say, let's not just blanket the whole entire industry. Because of Kenneth Copeland and Joel
I wanted to say something that I forgot to say earlier, and I'll say it really fast, and then we can leave. Because we do rail on churches a lot. So I have a positive church story. This past Sunday, my partner and I were in Cincinnati visiting some friends, and we went to church. We went to church on Sunday, and it was a United Church of Christ church. And on their front sign, it was a beautiful, like old-timey looking cathedral. But on the sign was Trans Lives Matter was on one side, and the other side of the sign was all Black Lives Matter with the pride flag. And they had a couple dozen, maybe a few dozen Trans Lives Matter signs and individual names on these signs. And they represented trans people from the past year who had either killed themselves or had died from a violent attack because they are trans. And it was just such a beautiful service. Like, I have never felt like when there was the pastor was also a gay Black man, which was amazing, and he was awesome. And then there was this older white gentleman who prayed at one point, and he was like, God, we pray for all. And when he said all, I actually felt all. And I think it was the first time I heard someone like say we love and welcome all, and I actually believed it. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
it gave me hope. So there are good churches out there. They're just not where I
Yeah.
live, because I live in the conservative South. So,
Oh boy.
oh boy.
Oh boy.
Are you saying most pastors are actually saying, God, pour out your spirit on all flesh that looks like ours?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
believes
the
like
thing.
us.
that would be a really funny video, is like a pastor praying, but then like, the voiceover is like what he actually means, like, the translation or whatever. I think I'm going to shoot a video like that. It's
Ooh,
really funny.
Oh,
That's a good idea. You just gave me an idea too. You can do it though. It was your idea.
We're going to steal it and claim it as our own, Jeremy.
Well,
Like Mark Driscoll. Ba-ching!
Yeah. Yeah, but I did not do that tonight, April, even though you called me a misogynist pig. I did not do that.
Nope, I did not do that. I said spoken like true complementarian.
Which is translation, misogynist
There are
pig.
so many syllables in that complementarianism, but the synthesis.
Just say misogynist pig. It's like, it's more to the point. Because that's what complementarians are. So.
That's fair. That's fair.
All right, let's say goodnight.
All right, y'all. We love you. God loves you. We're super grateful for you, and we're grateful every single week that you tune in. Do us a favor, leave us a review on your podcasting platform, 5 stars, and write and tell people why they should listen to Evangelicalish, because we just want to expand the conversation. It has been absolutely amazing. We did 12,000 downloads over the last 30 days, which is absolutely incredible, and we're so grateful for every single one of you. But we want to continue to expand this conversation to many other folks who are creating such an amazing community. Also, a little teaser. We talked about teasing this tonight, and we forgot maybe, or just didn't remember, or whatever the case is. We are actually talking about coming to a city near you. And doing a live Evangelicalish episode, a Q&A, and doing dinner with all of y'all amazing folks out there. And so here's what we want you to do. We want you to hop on the Facebook page. We want you to let us know what city, like a nice like hub, right, that people could get to. So, if you live in, Hooker, Oklahoma, please don't say Hooker, Oklahoma. Please pick a place we can fly to. But we would
really a town called Hooker, Oklahoma?
Yeah. So the first coaching gig I ever had was for the Hooker Horny Toads.
Oh, well, that's special.
And we had a giant bus. Our colors were, so it was Legion baseball. It was guys who were trying to get Division I scholarships, like really high level baseball. We had guys from 5 states that played for us. It was awesome. But yeah, we were on the radio, and they would sell shirts at the game, support your local hookers. Like, I mean,
oh my gosh,
like it was intense. Our bus had a giant purple stripe down the side, because we were purple and gray. It had a giant purple stripe down the side that said Hooker Horny Toads, and underneath the driver's seat it said Coach Toad. And people would we would be driving down the interstate, people would be hanging out the windows, like taking pictures and stuff like that of all of our bus, and they would get pictures with our players with their uniforms on. It was a lot of fun. So anyway, but if you're from a small town, rural town, whatever, let's pick some major hubs. I think we want to do, what do we say, 4 dates, guys? Is that what we're talking about? Maybe to kind of get things started.
True,
kinda
but we
hit
might
some-
hit that first one. If no one shows up, then we'll just go home and cry ourselves to sleep
Yeah,
and not do anymore.
cry ourselves to sleep. But let us know. Let us know where you might. Yeah, it was really good marketing, Tino, by the way. But let us know where you would like us to go. I think we're going to try to hit 4 dates, try to hit some different regions here in the United States. I don't know if there's more votes for Melbourne, Australia, then I'm definitely in on that one. But anyway, we would love to meet everyone in person. So if you're just a podcast, I shouldn't say that. Let me back up. If you are a podcast listener and you don't tune in live on Wednesday nights, please absolutely feel free to join the Facebook group. It's just Evangelicalish. Ask to join. It's a private group. It's super safe. It's an amazing group, and let us know some of your thoughts there as well. So anyway, love God, love people passionately. No strings attached. We hope to see you guys on the road very soon. Until next week, I'm Jeremy. That's Paul and April. We love you.
Good night.
Good night.